we've long talked about how there's an issue on the right that they think is going on more so on the left, but it's all projection, right? You know, the idea that there are a bunch of people, bunch of rich elites purchasing the narratives and pushing people. But if you look into anything on the right, like say, I don't know, let's just pick a random one, Turning Point USA, or Ben Shapiro, Milo Yiannopoulos, name a name, Steven Crowder, Dave Rubin. Let's just keep on naming names. All of these people are bankrolled by billionaires to be boosted. No, not TYT. All these people are boosted to appear more marketable than they actually are. For example, Dave Rubin goes from being on TYT, where he wants his own show, has his own show for a little bit, but is incredibly lazy about getting it out, wants to be paid six figures, more than anyone else there, to do less work for a once-a-week half-an-hour show, bails, and all of a sudden, he's got a fancy new studio, he's got HD cameras, and he's doing exactly what he said he wanted to do. Except for, all of a sudden, he's right-wing. Well, certainly not left-wing. He's a classical liberal. Which, when you grind that down, just winds up being, libertarian-esque. At least that's what he says. So he says the left left him, and automatically goes against all his core beliefs from the beginning, including accepting full-on homophobia, and people telling him that he shouldn't be married to his husband, or that they wouldn't attend his gay wedding. Including people not knowing that he was gay and finding out later and saying things like, "Oh my God, I touched him. Oh my God, I shook his hand. I got the poo on me." He got red-pilled by a black man. Sure he did. No, actually, what we come to find out later is he got bankrolled by the Koch brothers. I'm going to find out that he is 100% bankrolled by Learn Liberty. They put a huge investment in him, and also Dennis Prager put a huge investment in him. So there's your billionaires. There's your rich people pouring money into these people to become mouthpieces. That's just but one example. Like I said, Turning Point USA, funded by Foster Friess, and also Charlie Kirk's dad, who is, well, also rich beyond your wildest dreams. We could seriously go all day pointing this out. But, it couldn't be my favorite guy. Like, let's say your favorite guy is, I don't know, Dan Bongino. We'll get to him. This article written by John Iadarola. The Myth of the Conservative Bestseller. Bonganino? Yeah. Dan Bongos. Late last month, the release of Donald Trump Jr.'s book Trigger led to some embarrassment for the president's son when it was revealed that its inclusion as number one on the New York Times bestsellers list, involved suspicious bulk purchases. The New York Times tracks this sort of behavior and puts a dagger symbol alongside any book it believes used institutional, special interest, group, or bulk purchases. By the way, I am fully sure that there are Democrats who do this, but of course, people like Hillary Clinton, who you're not going to find anybody kind to Hillary Clinton here. I'm sure you can find a number of examples of neoliberal establishment Democrats doing the same exact thing. And I got news for you. I don't like it from them either. Fuck them both. None of them should be doing this. But Then again, the Democrats lose. The Republicans win. And the Republicans are seen as winners. So, is that true, or is it just a narrative? I continue. One example of how a book earns this dagger is that FEC disclosures identified a single massive RNC payment of $94,800 to bookseller Books A Million this October, a few days before the retail release of Triggered. Fuck them both. At the list price of $23.09 online, that payment alone would be more than 4,000 copies of the book, nearly enough to get it placed on the New York Times bestseller list by itself. New York Times reporter Nick Confessor also shared a photo of numerous boxes of the book being stored in the offices of Turning Point USA. Hey, that's weird. What did I say earlier? Foster Freeze and Charlie Kirk's dad fund that entire operation? Well, apparently they're buying all of Donald Trump Jr.'s books. That's very strange that they're boosting this to give esteem to Donald Trump Jr. so he can slap a sticker on there that says New York Times bestseller with a dagger that no conservative will ever look into, because all they care about is the title and not the reality. Donald Trump Jr. is a perfect case study in how this works, but he is far from the only author to seemingly game the system. When I examined just the last year of New York Times bestsellers, it was difficult to go even 1 week without one or more spots being taken up by a political book labeled with the dagger. Curious to know which books have benefited from this practice? In just the past year, and you guys can fact check them all you want. Go ahead. Yeah, it is an unusual place to store books. It's an unusual thing to do with books, really. It's almost like they're only doing it to give legitimacy to the book and the person without actually having people buy it. Just giving the appearance that it does. The fact versus the fiction. Jeanine Pirro's Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge, Mark Levin's Unfreedom of the Press, Molly Hemingway and Carrie Severino's Brett Kavanaugh profile, Justice on Trial, Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History, Fox and Friends meteorologist Janice Dean's Mostly Sunny, Corey Lewandowski's Trump's Enemies, Jason Chaffetz's The Deep State, Glenn Beck's Addicted to Outrage, Dinesh D'Souza's Death of a Nation, Howard Schultz From the Ground Up. See, it's not just conservatives. Well, it's not just Republicans. Former NRA TV pundit Dan Bongino's Exonerated and Fox News contributor Andrew McCarthy's Ball of Collusion have all received the dagger. See, now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, the New York Times is lying. New York Times is lying. Okay. But that's the same New York Times that these same people will quote to say that they're a New York Times bestseller. So which is it? Are they telling the truth or are they telling a lie? Which is the lie? Is the lie that the books actually sold? Is the lie that the books did sell? Is the lie that many books did sell? Or is the lie that it came from one entity buying it to boost the esteem of these separate people to push a narrative that works alongside of keeping certain people in power? I'll give you some time to think about that. This is a great article. Feel free to go back further in the history of the list, and I'm confident even more authors will find themselves owners of a dagger. Warning, as I've already experienced one of the above authors have a public meltdown over a tweet of mine identifying that the dagger was included with their book on the list, I would like to say in advance to those authors, if you believe your book received the dagger in error, take it up with the New York Times. I'll be right back. They flagged your book as benefiting from bulk purchases. Not me. Podcasts are required, but will it be an actual podcast that I can download on my podcast player? I don't know yet. I'll try and make it that. It depends. Like, I have somebody that I'm talking to kind of off and on about it, and we need to talk a little bit more seriously about it, but I've been kind of busy with some stuff over the past week, but I really want to do it because, you know, I don't want to just be a politics guy. I want to cover a lot of things. And I have a lot of music opinions. You know, why not? Just do that. There we go. There are very few non-political nonfiction bestsellers that used bulk sales, with notable exceptions including books by Gary Sinise and Ben Folds. Aside from a half dozen or so, it was almost entirely books concerning politics and nearly exclusively right-wing authors who were employing this practice. See, nearly exclusively, not all. If you find something that proves against the point and say, oh, Hillary Clinton did this or Barack Obama did this, which, by the way, yeah, they shouldn't be doing it either. I don't stand by them doing that. I don't stand by anyone doing that. But that's a whataboutism. You got to address your camp, buddy. Let's talk about the problems on your side. Seems to be more of an exclusive problem on where you're at. Why is that? We really need to address that. First of all, you need to admit to yourself that that's what's going on. It is. And that while it is a problem that it happens with Democrats, we fully embrace that this is a bad thing. And we can fully admit that it's a bad thing that they do that. And I'm fully willing to disown anyone who does this. Anyone. Because I actually care about why this happens. And you have to ask yourself why you don't. Okay? The standard response with these sorts of bulk purchases are revealed. The standard response when these sorts of bulk purchases are revealed is that the books will be used to entice people to donate if the group doing the bulk buying is a nonprofit, or perhaps attend an event, in the case of a student group. It's possible that some or many of those who will receive the book in those ways will read it and enjoy it, but I believe it isn't unfair to point out that they apparently weren't big enough fans to purchase a copy themselves when the book was released. Fair. The dagger being applied to a book also does not mean it had no organic reach. We can't say for sure what percentage of the sales were individual or bulk, and it is certainly possible that an author benefited from bulk sales that they had no part in organizing. Some authors might not even know that this is going on. That's incredibly fair. The point is that bestseller lists provide an aura of organic, genuine popularity. And this is my point. Bulk buys ensure success regardless of whether anyone is remotely interested in the book. They allow those with the necessary resources to conjure up an illusion of grassroots popularity. I want to point out that several of the most prominent conservative media figures that I went into this research assuming would be revealed to be frauds apparently have earned their spots on the bestseller list the hard way. The most recent books by Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly did not receive the bulk purchase dagger designation. Fair? Michael Savage also avoided bulk buys, although his book only made it on the list at number 11, and only stayed there for 1 week before disappearing. You might be wondering why we should care about this sort of scam. I believe there are a few reasons. Similarly, an author who employed this strategy could hypothetically use their status as oh, I skipped a paragraph. My bad. First appearing on the New York Times bestsellers list through bulk purchases or not have been estimated to increase actual book sales by 57%. There is real money being made through gaming the system. Similarly, an author who employed this strategy could hypothetically use their status as a bestseller to nab appearances on talk shows, cable news, speaking engagements, and more. For $50,000 or less in bulk buys, a dishonest actor could quickly launch a media career by gaining the coveted label New York Times bestseller. What did I tell you? Put the little sticker on there. All of a sudden, people are like, "Oh my God, a lot of people must have read this. A lot of people must have liked this." It's all AstroTurf, all of it. I would argue many have already pursued this strategy, or consider how bulk buys could be used to buy influence with prominent politicians. The RNC spent nearly $100,000 on the president's son's book. No conflict of interest there. Is it irrational to wonder if that could influence the president? Third, allowing bulk sales to launch people onto the list artificially crowds out books that actually earn their spots. For example, Howard Stern's most recent book, Howard Stern Comes Again, wink, debuted at number 1, but was pushed out the next week by Mark Levin's Unfreedom of the Press, which maintained its position week by week, from week 1, earning a dagger every week. Nothing weird there. Now Howard Stern isn't going to be hungry as a result of Levin's actions. I apologize for pronouncing that wrong the first time. But every dagger on that list pushes another book off the list. Think of how important even a number 14 or number 15 spot on the list could be to a first-time author who actually earned it through organic sales. We'll never know who they are, of course, but that doesn't make them any less real. Fourth, this practice also devalues books people actually care to buy and read. I only award it 1 wink because that's all it deserved. Like, okay, Howard, okay. For example, Michelle Obama's Becoming is still at number 11 after 46 weeks on the list, without ever once gaining the dagger symbol. To a person casually reading over this list, Becoming and any other of the other books mentioned in this piece appear similarly popular, but it just isn't so. So, apparently at least Michelle Obama ain't doing it. But perhaps most importantly, the perpetual presence of conservative political books on the bestseller list creates an enduring myth, the myth of popular support for these conservative personalities. What do I keep saying? If your ideas are popular, then you wouldn't have to cheat. I know of no survey that measures this, but it seems like common sense that conservative books seemingly dominating bestsellers lists would lead people to believe that the authors have real fan bases and that they are more popular than liberal authors who show up far less often on these lists. Perhaps they do. When it comes to their books, though, we have no idea how popular they are when the bestseller list is so easy to game. The New York Times needs to think seriously about what it wants a spot on their bestsellers list to represent. If it is intended to be a measure of which books are actually generating the most interest in purchases, then perhaps it is time to replace the dagger policy with more stringent requirements to make it onto the list in the first place. Assuming that doesn't happen, at the very least, people need to be made aware of what is going on, lest the myth of the conservative bestseller continues. Now, this, of course, pissed off one of the people. Of course, it's addressed in here. Pissed off one of the people who's included in this article. Mr. Dan Bongos himself. Here's what Danny Boy went on to say in response to this article. Proving what a lying piece of human garbage you are, I will write you a check for $10,000 tomorrow if you can provide evidence that our 46,000 plus sales in just a few months were due to bulk sales. You can't because you're a liar, and that's what sleazy liberals do. They lie. All right. New York Times bestseller. The New York Times bestseller list desk editors, based on standards for inclusion that encompass proprietary vetting and audit protocols, corroborative reporting, and other statistical determinations. When included, such bulk purchases appear with a dagger. A dagger like that. Now, because John was blocked by Dan, I went ahead and commented with screen grabs saying that, hey, John is completely fine with you donating the money to a child's charity. As seen here, I would be more than happy to have him donate the money to childhood literacy charity. I think that's pretty fair. John's doing pretty well for himself. I'm sure he's not, floating in cash, of course, but he does pretty okay. So, what was Dan's response? Did he hold himself to it, or did he block John? Well, he blocked him. And then never went back to anything that he just said. Just completely wrote it off, deleted the tweets. Because that's what you get when you deal with conservatives like this. They're lying to you guys. They're lying to you. Their positions are not popular. They are not bestsellers. They are the elites. The liberals are not the elites. The neoliberals, maybe. The conservatives, oh, definitely. Another example of conservatives having to cheat in order to win. It's right here. A judge ordered the state to purge more than 200,000 voters from the rolls. What should I do if I'm one of them? What state is that? Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Where was... Oh, right, Wisconsin. Well, Trump won Wisconsin. And it was a landslide, right? Roughly 20,000 votes is what he won by. Let's see how many people are being kicked off the rolls again. 200,000. That's weird. Let's read on. I'm sure there's no political bias here. I'm sure, guys. I'm sure you're sure, right? A Wisconsin judge on Friday ordered the Wisconsin Elections Commission to remove the registrations of more than 200,000 Wisconsin voters who may have moved and received letters saying they might need to re-register to vote. The case has become a proxy for the ultimate battleground. Wisconsin has become a proxy for the ultimate battleground Wisconsin will play in the re-election bid of President Donald Trump, who won the state by fewer than 23,000 votes in 2016, propelling him to victory. Here's a look at the case and what it means for voters. Who sued and why? State elections officials in October sent letters to about 234,000 Wisconsin voters it believes may have moved. Soon after, the conservative legal firm Wisconsin Institute and Law and Liberty on behalf of 3 men from suburban Milwaukee, sued the Wisconsin Elections Commission, arguing state law requires registrations of such voters be removed if the voters haven't, within 30 days, told the commission they didn't actually move. State elections officials say they don't have enough reliable evidence to prove these voters have indeed moved and want to wait to sort it out until after the presidential election in 2020 to preserve access to voting. The judge's ruling Friday came down on the side of the legal firm. What should people do if they get a letter? Regardless of whether they have moved, they should take action. If they haven't moved, they can tell election clerks they are still at their current address and keep their voter registrations current. If they have moved, they need to update their voter registration. To find out whether you're one of these voters, check your status and register if needed at blah 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 myvote.wisconsin.gov. If you're in Wisconsin, do this. You can take care of your registration at the polls on election day too, but you will need to fill out paperwork and provide proof of residence, such as driver's license, property tax bill, utility bill, bank statement, paycheck stub, lease, or workplace ID. At least it's a pretty extensive list. What have the voters who got the letter been told? The letters state that there is reason to believe the recipients may have moved. It asks them to update their registrations if they have moved or return a postcard saying they still live at the same address. But the letters don't say the people could have their voter registrations deactivated. I wonder why. That could become an important part of the lawsuit because voter advocates will likely contend people deserve to be warned before they have their voter registrations invalidated. You ever get a letter in the mail and just kind of go, it's probably a bill. I know what this is. It's just a bill. Whatever. I'll pay it when I have the money. And then all of a sudden, you lose your ability to vote. Nothing sketchy there, right? Why does the state believe these voters may have moved? The state generated the list of voters who have possibly moved using data from the Electronic Registration Information Center, or ERIC, which helps 29 states keep their voting rolls accurate. ERIC gathers information from other sources such as the U.S. Postal Service and Departments of Motor Vehicles to detect when someone may have moved. Sometimes that information provides false leads. For instance, some people might register their car at a relative's house to avoid paying a local wheel tax, but still maintain their same home for voting purposes. Elections Commission Chair Dean Knudsen on Monday sought to codify the ERIC data as reliable, but the panel deadlocked on the issue 3-3, and the motion failed. Still weird. Why does it matter whether voters' addresses are up to date? Election clerks want the most accurate voting rolls possible, and identifying people who may have moved helps them keep their records up to date. Voters have to be registered at their proper address to make sure that they go to the correct voting precinct and get the correct ballot. If they vote from the wrong address, they could be voting in the wrong local, legislative, and congressional races. And the downside of this is what? Good to see you, babe. Glad to see you're home. Who's affected? Letters went to about 7% of the state's 3.3 million registered voters. The largest number of letters were sent to voters in the state's 2 largest cities, Milwaukee and Madison. Remember what I said about political bias? Which are also the state's Democratic strongholds. Weird. They're not doing that for rural counties, are they? Nah. About 35,000 voters in Milwaukee and about 18,000 in Madison were sent the letters. Reminder. So those two put together are more than what Hillary Clinton lost by more than triple. Remember, it was 23,000 votes that she lost by. 35,000 and 18,000 in places that vote generally Democratic. Are we starting to see the issue here? And I'm going to say it again. Conservatives, if your ideas were as popular as you said they were, you wouldn't have to fucking cheat to win. Clean your own damn house before you come in here and talk about our house too, because believe me, we're working on it. What the fuck are you doing? The next largest groups of voters were in Eau Claire, Green Bay, and La Crosse, communities with UW system campuses. About 4,000 voters were sent letters in each of those cities, according to Elections Commission. In New Berlin, a reliably Republican city, about 1,400 were sent letters. A similar number of letters were sent to voters in Menomonee Falls, another bastion for Republicans. And I'm sure that will not have an effect. What are the political ramifications of the lawsuit? Wisconsin is perhaps the most closely watched state in next year's presidential election. Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton by 22,748 votes in 2016, and both sides will be monitoring the case at a time when the state is again split politically. Democrats fear removing a fraction of the total number of people who may have moved could matter in close races, including the presidential contest.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
That's interesting.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Also weird. I guess I really actually feel we shouldn't contort the voting process to accommodate the urban, read African American, voter turnout machine. The reduction, these are quotes by the way, the reduction in the number of days allowed for early voting in particular is particularly important because early voting plays a major role in Obama's ground game. The Democrats carried most states that allow many days of early voting, and Obama's national field director admitted shortly before last year's election that early voting is giving us a solid lead in the battleground states that will decide this election. That's from Phil Schlafly, Republican. Back to this story. Completely unrelated, I'm sure, to the idea that conservatives don't want the largest populace to vote. Because of the largest populace votes, they have a tendency of losing. Where does the issue stand? On Monday, the Elections Commission met to discuss the decision. Its chairman, Dean Knudson, who's appointed by the Republican Assembly Speaker, opposed to codify as reliable the information, suggesting the voters hadn't moved, and to activate the voters' registrations within 7 business days after receiving the Alzowski judge's order, which had not been filed as of Monday morning. Both ideas were rejected. This commission has never been run this way. It has never acted capriciously, and it has never acted in surprise like this. Mark Thompson, a commissioner appointed by the Democratic Assembly Minority Leader, said about the quick action proposed by Knudsen. Thompson said the move would create an unconstitutional burden on voters at the polls. Just like the insurance industry likes to make it more and more difficult for you to actually use your insurance by putting these artificial barriers in front of you to discourage you, they're doing the same here. If you go in there and you're like, oh, I gotta re-register. I just came to just like cast my vote and go home. I'm fucking tired. I just got off of work. Most people are going to get discouraged and they're going to go the fuck home because they probably waited in line for a long time after working that amount of time. Or even before, because they have to hurry up and get to work if they decide to go before work. This in turn, of course, slows down the process purposely and makes it so people do not vote. And when people do not vote, Republicans win. Because I'm going to say it again, if conservative ideas were actually as popular and as good as they said they were, they would not have to cheat. Their policies are not popular. The policies are not good. The American people do not want said policies. But we get them anyways. Through things like this. It would destroy our reputation we've worked so hard to build, he said. Robert Spindle, a commissioner appointed by the Republican Senate Majority Leader, said requiring voters to re-register at the polls does not create such hurdles. I think it is an outrage to have 235,000 people who probably should not be on the voter rolls, he said. It's unnecessary. This is really, unfortunately, a Republican-Democratic issue. The Republicans like to have clean rolls, and the Democrats like to keep lots of people on the rolls. Uh-oh. He said the quiet part loud. We like to have clean rolls. Democrats like to have a lot of people on there, meaning citizens are allowed to vote. The commission consists of 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. The panel unanimously agreed earlier this year to give the letter recipients more than a year to change their voter registrations before Spindle was appointed. Excuse me. Attorney General Josh Kaul, a Democrat, is expected to seek an emergency stay of the judge's ruling when it is filed, potentially tying up the matter in courts for weeks or months. Thompson argued Monday the commission shouldn't take action until the courts resolve the dispute to avoid confusion at the polls. For us to take this vote is simply grandstanding and trying to create points, he said. I think all of us should respect those people who are properly registered and not treat them like they're some piece of dirt. We do not have a right to impede someone. Spindle reiterated the process to register is very quick and takes just minutes. To say we're taking away people's rights to vote is inaccurate, he said. Just going to leave that, yeah. Don't have to worry about it if you have automatic voter registration, right, Carpe? Just going to leave that part highlighted, because that's the quiet part loud. If people are removed from the rolls even though they did not move, it could create confusion and longer lines at the polls. I'm sure an unintentional consequence. I'm 100% sure. On the flip side, if the voters aren't removed from the voter rolls, some people who moved will be registered at the wrong address and could wind up going to the wrong polling place. I mean, okay, what's the issue there? Are they just not allowed to vote then? As someone who did that for a few years, because I was trying to get cheaper car insurance. Car insurance in Michigan and especially Flint is incredibly expensive, especially if you have shit credit. It's incredibly expensive. So if I'm going to try to knock off $80 off of my monthly bill for car insurance, that's the way I do it. So I voted in the area that I lived in most of my life because I used my in-laws' address, which I previously lived at. It's not the greatest way to do things, but did it cause any harm? No, because my vote was still counted. I still was allowed to give my voice. Now, am I directly impacted by most of the things that I voted for? Actually, yes. So then what is the issue here? What is the issue here? Can anyone explain it to me? Without saying the words, this helps Republicans win. Can you tell me what the problem here is? We know what it is. I'm going to read this quote again. I think it is an outrage to have 235,000 people who probably should not be on the voter rolls, he said. It's unnecessary. Why shouldn't they be on the voter rolls? Because they moved from one area of Wisconsin to another? So then their vote no longer counts for Wisconsin? Like, let's say they move to the other side of the same city, but they're in the same district. They're not allowed to vote? Why? And again, we're going to point out this is 235,000 people, and Trump won by 23,000 votes. If you don't think that this is going to have an impact, you're wrong. And this is all intentional. They're lying to you when they say that this isn't going to take that long. Oh, re-registration, it takes minutes. It takes minutes, guys. Just takes minutes. Well, those minutes add up because that's extra minutes per person. Times those minutes by 235,000 people. What does that result in? A lot of time loss. A lot of backed up lines. A lot of confusion. A lot of people not understanding what the fuck is going on when, we don't make this a national holiday, so we have to work during it. If we can get off of work and just run up there and try and vote, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's a whole fucking thing? Well, fuck it. I'm going to go home. Or, fuck it. I'm going to have to wait. And then somebody else is going to get discouraged and they'll go home. This is all intentional. We're going to say it one more time. If conservative ideas were so damn popular and so damn good for this country, they would not have to cheat to win. You don't see Bernie Sanders doing this. Corvo, thank you for the follow. You don't see any of these people doing this. Anyone on the left doing this. We're trying to get as many people registered who are of adult age as possible. They're citizens of this country. They're allowed to vote. But Republicans want to cut away at the margins because they want to determine who can and cannot vote. Because if they cut away more and more and more and make it more and more difficult to vote, they win. What's the first most provocative? So there's that. Yes, left is most certainly best. Good to see you, bud. Laughing at libertarians. How's that more provocative than more conservative lies and tricks? But again, we're going to go ahead and say this. So we've got the right wing that is funded more by the billionaires than the left. We don't have, contrary to popular belief, the left doesn't have George Soros. Some neoliberals have George Soros. They're not giving money to Bernie fucking Sanders. They're giving money to like Elizabeth Warren, Pete Buttigieg. So the idea that the left is being propped up by billionaires and elites is a joke. Right wing, you have all the billionaires. And that's the truth. Don't believe me? I'm going to go ahead and point this out. Do you know who the first person who's going to lose a bunch of their money is if the actual left votes on these things and wins? Those billionaires. And they don't want that. Because we're going to use it to fund things that actually help the poor and raise this system from the bottom up rather from the top down. We're trying to make this less of a top-heavy economy. Do you think they honestly want that? You think George Soros wants that? No, he doesn't fucking want that. Jeff Bezos? No, he doesn't fucking want that. That's why he's done so much to avoid paying taxes in the first fucking place. The people funding Pete Buttigieg don't want that. Yep, Jeff Bezos. Nothing like seeing that dude's dick. That wasn't weird at all. Nope, not weird at all. Yeah, what they really want. The welfare state is not really about the welfare of the masses. It is about the egos of the elites. Sure, bud. Sure, bud. Did you really? You know he's a Nazi, right? Like full on. He's a Holocaust denier. Like you won't ever see him on my channel. He blocked me already on Twitch or on Twitter. Oh man, Igloo, sorry to hear that. Yeah, he's full on Nazi. Talk to my buddy Wired Guitar about that. He's deep in exposing him on Twitter. He has a rat, a mole, if you will, in his Discord, and he's been spreading around screenshots, mystical references to society and its programs to help may warm the hearts of the gullible, but what it really means is putting more power in the hands of bureaucrats. You know what Thomas Sowell doesn't understand? How power works. Like literally all those things are meant to just empower the rich. All those things are meant to keep the people who are already in power there. Oh, we can't make it so that the poor have some sort of equality of opportunity to the rich elites. No. We'll sell it to them that it's actually good for them that we fuck them over every single chance we get. The welfare state is the oldest con game in the world. First, you take people's money away quietly, and then you give some of it back to them flamboyantly. Oh, this is the money is theft argument. Oh, God. Okay. All right. Welcome back, my Jessica Balls. Good to see you. The Hoover Institution guy. Oh, money is theft. Yeah. You know what I always love about when I have shit stolen from me? It's when I actually get something from it. Oh my God, somebody came in and robbed me and gave me roads and streetlights and a defense and protection for if my house catches on fire. Oh, fuck me. That's so terrible. How dare they take my money and give me something far more valuable for it? Jesus Christ. Thomas Sowell doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm just going to say it, but if you're buying into that lie, I don't know what to tell you. You need to be a lot more self-examinate. The idea that, I saw this whole thing where, this guy posted this video about, this is the good libertarian response to roads, where the guy didn't even answer the question about how roads actually get built in his society. You guys don't have an idea of how those roads get built. You say, private industry will build the roads because people need to be able to get there. Okay, well, what about rural towns? Well, I'm sure they can pool their money together and build their own roads. Okay, what if they don't have enough money to do that? What if they're so poor that they can't also become customers? I mean, for one thing, they don't have a road to get to end job in order to earn that money to build their own road. How does this all work out? This is a chicken and the egg sort of scenario where, which comes first, the road or the worker to pay for it? Well, the road needs to come first because the worker needs to be able to get to his fucking job. People like Thomas Sowell don't understand that because they've never been poor. They've never worked a legitimate blue-collar job in their fucking lives. They just continue to avoid taxes as much as possible through a number of different money tricks. And then say, I'm a genius because I didn't give back to the society that I benefited from. Max, thanks you for the follow. I'd have to look into it. I know I've heard the name before. I at least used to know who Thomas Sowell is. But it doesn't really fucking matter, does it? It doesn't make his points any smarter. It doesn't make them any more, wrong. It doesn't make his version of society any more legitimate. I don't need to understand the ins and outs of that person to know that what he's saying is complete and utter bullshit. Yep, exactly. Praxis is on it. I was watching a cringy debate, and the host rated their opponent's stream. The guy was unironically watching Crowder talking while eating on mic, and I couldn't take it. Well, I won't be watching Crowder unironically, but I have been waiting to eat my food. Thomas Sowell was a flaming Democrat. He graduated college and then want to help people, so he got a government job to help people. It opened his eyes to what government really was. Are you trying to say that there's no such thing as a conservative Democrat? I'm sure this guy also didn't understand how economics works. Things like welfare are economic multipliers. They're good for the economy because it puts money in the hands of the people that are most likely to spend it. Again, for the umpteenth time on this stream, we are going to say the phrase velocity of money. I suggest you look that up. It's really important. Who has the higher velocity of money? Me or Jeff Bezos? Well, he's clearly not a very good one. Oh my God, I got him because he's an economist. Well, he's not very good, is he? because he's saying all these things about welfare, and he's not pointing out that they're economic multipliers at all. Giving money to those who use it creates a flow of money. That's how an economy works. Exactly. Marx is an economist too. You're gonna now sidestep and say, well, I agree with both of them. Why not? I agree. We should be giving people more money. What did you think that was going to be your gotcha? Yes, we should give people more money. At the bottom. This is why we were able to build an economy from the 50s through the 60s and otherwise, is the concentration of money was pretty evenly divided from the top and the bottom. It was a lot closer to each other. A CEO made only 25% more than his lowest paid worker. It's much higher now. Productivity has gone up. Why haven't wages? Whenever someone warns about the supposedly unsupportable costs of entitlements decades into the future, you should ask why exactly. It's urgent that we solve that conjectural future problem now, and why it has any bearing at all on current fiscal issues. Don't say that it's obvious. It isn't. And in fact, deficit scolds bob and weave when confronted with that question. True. Two people can play at this game. Give people more money until the value of the money is zero. You don't know how money works. You don't understand how money works. That's not how money works. Good Lord. Ugh. Hey, Omniux. Good to see you. Thank you for the biddies. That's a guy who probably thinks gold money is good. Guaranteed. He doesn't understand that part of the thing that gives our money value is our taxes. A largest part. The fact that the government collects taxes in the ways it does. Not to mention the circulation of money. Again, I'm going to say it. The velocity of money is higher among the poorest people than the richest. Hoarding money is bad for the economy, which is why we're at where we're at. How many wars can you fund with gold versus paper? Won't be able to fund much at all if we go back to the gold standard. Putting a finite resource in the hands of those who don't want to dole it out. Say, if we replace the amount of billionaires' money with something that is finite on this earth, do you think we're going to get very much of that? They're going to hold on to it. Instead, we can just print endless amounts of money. Now, we shouldn't be doing that. I go back and forth on MMT. I'm not a big believer in deficits. I think deficits decrease if you increase spending at the time when the deficit is at its worst, when we're in a recession. This has been borne out, but because you have to give some sort of boost to the economy, and that doesn't just happen by saying, oh, we need to hoard our own money in. That, again, stops the flow of money. These are not foreign concepts. This is not rocket science. This is economy. And yes, I get my bits from watching ads, so it's not much. Hey, I appreciate that. Actually, you can argue that effectively the U.S. is effectively on the oil standard, and the same reason that is bad is why the gold standard is bad. True. Very true. I too go back and forth on MMT. Yeah. Right, to some extent, yeah. Wealth is surplus, and but its nature contributes nothing. Yes. These people, man.